So today is we have a very good lesson to practice today. And very uncompromising. Only God's plan for salvation will work. So we've done those lessons now where we have realized that salvation comes from ourselves, from within. And this is not in opposition to only God's plan for salvation will work. Because God is within. God is all that is within. So this lesson is very helpful. We can give some willingness to it. It's going to be very powerful. So lesson 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. To accept God's plan in place of the ego's, you believe is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. So we want to look at now what the ego's plan is. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. So it's a constant preoccupation of what should be changed, what should be different outside. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. This is pretty harsh. And it's very, very judgmental and condemning rather than forgiving. To keep changing places, people, and situations rather than forgiving. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine, seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? What could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? Makes sense. God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction, You seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Very simply, the idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed.
Let us practice recognizing this certainty today. And let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict, with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of His plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal His plan to us. Ask Him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and to whom? Give Him full charge of the rest of the practice period and let Him tell you what needs to be done by you in His plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear His voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation, and only His, will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today, and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend a half minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is.
We can take some time with this lesson now. We can start to think about today's idea, realizing it contains 2 parts. That God's plan for your salvation will work and other plans will not. And don't allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. Don't allow yourself to be depressed or angry about the second part. Second part being other plans won't work. Only God's plan will work. Because in this first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. And then this deep prayer to God to reveal his plan to us. So to really be with this prayer, asking, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Say, I don't know. God, show me. Give God full charge of the rest of the practice period. And let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. We can allow our minds to can allow ourselves to go within. Just go within into this prayer. This insight that our own plans won't work. We can release any investment in our own ideas. And just go a bit deeper into listening, asking, being open. So when we read this lesson, we understand that we might be a bit addicted to the ego's plan for salvation. To have something outside of us change for us to be happy. It can be like an addiction to grievances, an addiction to be angry at something outside. That something should be changed. I can't be happy unless he or she changes their behavior. Or unless this or that situation changes. That's why we have time. That's why we have a world. Because this is projection. So this lesson invites us to experience God's plan for salvation. And guidance is in here, asking, what would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? So it's not even for us to decide who to speak to. It's for us to be guided in who to speak to and what to say. We don't have the right to just let the ego speak through us, basically. We don't have that right if we want salvation. That doesn't give us salvation. We need to step back and ask. And to be able to hear, we need to release the grievance. And we may need some help with this. We may need the Holy Spirit's help. Actually, we do need the Holy Spirit's help in this process. And that's all we need. And this is also the only and the best use of our mind and our time. Is to see and release any grievance and ask for guidance. Because in this world, our minds have become very, very active and distracted. So we need to use our mind in a way that's still active, because we're not ready for complete stillness. And this active part can be guided. So it's beautiful that we are given these directions. We're getting help where we need help the most. I just wish you a really beautiful day. Full of presence, step by step. What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? It's the prayer.